Greetings, everybody. Thank you very much for joining in. This is the Rainmakers podcast. This is the third episode. We welcome all of you who's joining from LinkedIn, from YouTube, and from Facebook for joining in today. This is a special episode. We are going to talk about personality development, and we are also going to talk about how to set dreams, how to set goals. And to first of all, introduce the co-host, she's Jack Canfield certified success trainer. She's a lawyer. She's a lecturer. She has many more accolades under her belt. Please welcome Donna Balasurya as the co-host. Donna, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Yoga.
Great. Fabulous. Next up is our guest. He is success story. He has served in positions like Chief Financial Officer, Director, General Manager in many multiple multinational companies from humble beginnings. He's a multi-award winning speaker, sought after keynote speaker, and we can speak about him. His introduction goes for 3 pages long. I have shortened it as much as possible. He is an amazing personality, always carries a smile, always a great friend. Please welcome Farhas Farooq as our guest for the Rainmakers podcast. Farhas, thank you very much for being here.
It's always a pleasure to join both of you. Thanks for having me.
Fabulous. I hope you have been having a gala day, a fabulous day today.
Yes, it has been quite a day. The only thing missing today is probably the rain, but that's why we have a Rainmakers podcast, I guess.
Exactly. I think we are going to make rain today, and that is how it is going to be.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Farhad, I think your story is something that is amazing. Many people are joining in from many several places. So I invite all of you to ask questions from Farhad, use his knowledge, use his experience. So drop in a message, able to share the and we will be able to questions answered so that the purpose of this is, and because we believe things have, and we will be able to add value as we go on. So thank you very much for everybody joining in. Please be kind enough to send us the questions, and we will be able to add value as much as possible. Donna, please be kind enough to take it from here.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Yoga. And a very good evening to all of you who are joining with the Rainmakers podcast. And a warm welcome to you, Farhas, for joining with us this evening. And absolutely, I really am a big fan of yours, and I've seen how inspirational you have been right from the past to what you are now. And of course, as Yoga said, you have played multiple roles in multinational organizations, from director to general manager to CFO. And I'm sure the people who are joining with us has so much to learn from you. And to all our viewers today, we are doing a slight change today to the podcast. That is, instead of asking questions in the first 10 minutes, we want Farhas to tell us what is his secret to his success. And I'm sure most of you can learn a lot from his fabulous personality. So, Farhas, we would love to learn what exactly is your secret to success.
Thank you, Yoga. Thanks for unmuting me, and thanks a lot, Donna. Yeah, it's a great pleasure being here, and perhaps over the next few 35 to 40 minutes, maybe share a little bit of what I have gone through in life and how things have taken shape over the past. Well, if I say how old I am, you'll know how old I am, so I'm not going to say that. Over the past 22 plus years, how life has taken me and treated me. It's in no small measure to my willingness to make changes. Changes, I call this changing from within as well as changing from without. Now, what do I mean by this? We should never shy away from being ready to make changes when necessary. And sometimes changes become necessary. It's as a result of necessity. Sometimes it's a matter of choice. Now, let me start with a few short term changes that I did in my life, and that is, a few short term changes in my life, and that was because It was as a result of necessity. Like, for instance, ladies and gentlemen, I had to move. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and then when I got to my mid teens, I had to move from Saudi Arabia to Sri Lanka. And when I moved here I was a kid who's used to the so called Saudi way of life, the Saudi sports, the Saudi languages, and so on. And here I was moving to Sri Lanka, which was obviously a different country with a different setup and a different set of languages. To start with, my favorite sport was football. When I got to Sri Lanka, I looked around. I didn't find too many football fields. I found cricket fields and I found rugby. Now, to me, cricket was completely alien. I didn't know what it was. I knew there were a bunch of people who were in, and when they were in, they were actually out, and when they were out, they were actually in. That was all I knew about cricket. But rugby was something that seemed very familiar to me, similar to football. So I took that game on board, and I switched from being a football player to a rugby player. And then when we got to languages, I attended an Indian school back in Saudi Arabia. So I studied, of course, it was in the English medium, but I had to study Hindi and I had to study Arabic. Hindi because Indian school, Arabic because Saudi Arabia. I got to Sri Lanka and I found out, okay, knowing Hindi and Arabic isn't really going to help me read the signboards or the boards on the buses, and therefore I might end up going to the wrong place. So I was forced out of necessity to learn the language. And that's exactly what I did. I started learning Sinhala, and that's another story how I actually learned Sinhala, but I call it. And Yoga, if we can get to the second slide, first and the second slide, please. The second slide, please. Yoga, are you with me? I can't hear you, Yoga. Yes, yes, that's the one. So I call it 0 to 60 in 1 year. I know people when they drive, they go from 0 to 60 in like a minute. I went 0 to 60 in 1 year. What do I mean by that? I actually started with the alphabets at the ripe old age of 15. So there I was with my younger cousins. These guys were writing essays and reading Guttila Kave and all of that stuff. And here I was going, and so I started at 0. At the end of that year, I did the ordinary level Sinhala paper and I got a credit, which is why I put 60. So 0 to 60 in 1 year. And that was an amazing learning experience. I got a great teacher. He told me, listen, let's take this on board. I will help you out, but you really need to put the effort in. And that's exactly what I did. And I actually learned a complete entire new language in the course of 1 year. Later on in life, I had to decide on my profession, and I had always wanted to be an engineer. I did A levels, mathematics, and the whole works. And for my bad luck, the university shut down because of certain civil strife we had back then. If I was to become an engineer, I had to wait for 4 years just to start my first year. So then I looked around, all of my friends, we had a little Lindalaga Sangama, and then we decided, okay, let's all forget about engineering, let's become accountants. And that's exactly what happened. So I made a change along with my friends, a complete change in career path from being striving to be engineers to becoming accountants. So the first one was made more out of circumstances, football to rugby. The second one, the need to learn Sinhala was more out of necessity. The third one was because of situations and because of literally by force, I guess, because of the environment. The fourth one was the biggest change that I did. I moved from bachelor to becoming a married human being, and I would attribute this move to all the above reasons that I said earlier, by force, by circumstances, by necessity, and so on and so forth. And these are just a quick view of short term changes. Let's move on to some of the longer term changes that I did in life. You see, uh, in my mid 30s, oops, now you all know I'm over 30. Okay, in my mid 30s, in my mid 30s, I found myself as a very fat individual. Let me put it that way. That's the simplest way of putting it. Very unhealthy, with a lot of unhealthy habits. Next slide, please, Yoga. And I had a lot of issues cropping up with regards to the long term health in terms of getting bad numbers for the cholesterol count, bad sugar counts, and so on. And one thing was certain: if I went down that route, I would probably would have not made it past my 38th birthday. Now, I had one of two choices: resign to fate and say, hey, okay, I just got another 3 years to live, let me make the most of it and eat some more, or do something about it.
Yeah.
I decided to do something about it. And this was not unlike the 0 to 60 in 1 year, or the switch from football to rugby, or the switch from engineering to accounting. Those were quick decisions made, of course, with long term repercussions, but quick decisions made. Here was a situation where I really had to make changes in the long run for my long term benefit. So, mid 30s, I made a decision: listen, I can no longer be this unhealthy individual. I need to cut down my weight. I was 110 kilos, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, back then. I had bad numbers for the cholesterol and what have you, a big problem in my knee which needed surgery. And to make it worse, I was working long hours and high stress environment. What did I do? Next slide, please, Yoga. Two slides on, please. I made a conscious decision to lose weight. I made a conscious decision to change my health, uh, get it to the better. And what I did was, Yoga, sorry, the slide doesn't seem to be moving. Anyway, while you figure that out, I just want the fourth slide on, please, if you don't mind. So while I decided I needed to cut my weight down. So from 110 kilos, I worked my way to 100 kilos, and I call it 100 to 110 via 80. 100 to 110 via 80. What does that mean? Well, that's another story which I'll leave. Maybe I can touch on a little while later. But I ended up at 100 kilos, and I still am 100 kilos. Actually, I am 100, and I'm quite happy with 100, so I've stuck to that. My numbers are good. The cholesterol, the sugar, and all of that stuff is all stabilized. I don't use any medication. The knee problem is sorted out, and I have managed to work out a way to resolve the stress. Now, how was all of this actually possible, my dear friends? And that's because, not to say that Farhas Farooq is great at making changes. Farhas, and by extension every single person who's alive here, we all of us have personalities, and what we feel is that when we have a certain personality, these personalities are fixed. We can't make any changes. This is it. We are born with this personality, we are born with these characteristics, with these traits, and we can't make any changes. That's not right. Now, in this connection, I would like to introduce you to the definition of what personality is. And Yoga, thanks for getting this slide on, but we need to move on to the next one. What is the definition of what is the definition of personality? And personality is effectively, it's defined as the individual differences in characteristic patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Let me repeat it while the slide comes back on, because we still can't see it. Individual differences in characteristic patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. If you follow that definition, ladies and gentlemen, nowhere does it say that this is fixed. Nowhere does it say that your personality is fixed. It's just differences between the way different people think, feel, and behave, which simply means that each of us also can think, feel, and behave differently at different times. And therein lies the truth of the ability for each and every one of us to develop our personality to make that change. So, point to note, personality is not fixed by definition. It just talks about thinking, feeling, behaving, and the differences in each individual. And by extension, within an individual also, there could be differences in thinking, feeling, behaving. And that's how it is possible for each and every one of us to develop our personalities. So, friends, as you can see, personality is not fixed, it actually can be changed. Let's consider the case of a group of street performers. And if you think about these gentlemen here, you may see, okay, these are a bunch of people who seem to be trying to making a living on the road. This is one possibility, one interpretation of what we see. The other thing is they probably enjoy doing this. They are probably doing this on their at their free time. Maybe these people have a different life, kind of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of a situation, and this is what they like to do to moonlight. And lots of people wouldn't mind doing this if this is what they enjoy. Point is, just by looking at them, we are not able to, well, at least I am not able to decide, okay, what their personalities or whatever, because we don't really know. Each of these are complex individuals, just like each and every one of us, and each of us will have reasons, different reasons as to why we do things. Let's look at the next picture on this slide, on this set of slides, and what we can see is our friend Mr. Bean on his holiday. Now, we all, I'm sure lots of us have watched this movie, and we know exactly why Mr. Bean had to do this. This was a scenario where he had lost his wallet and his passport, and he got ended up with somebody else's kid he had to look after, and he was hungry, so he had to make money. So a person who set out as a tourist had to end up becoming a street performer in Europe out of circumstances. Same story. We could probably draw a similarity over here with each and every one of us. Different situations, different scenarios, different situations, circumstances may make us to do things differently. And it should. That's the point. Just because our life has always been in a particular way doesn't necessarily mean that we just continue to live in that way. If situations, circumstances need us to make a change, please go ahead and do it. Now, all of this, ladies and gentlemen, is just not a figment of my imagination. It's not something that I made up. There's a lot of much more, a thousand times smarter than me, people who are a thousand times smarter than me, who have actually studied this. They've done a lot of scientific research behind this and done a lot of work. And we start off with what's called the trait theory. I would just like to touch on it. This is not going to be, I promise, it's not going to be an academic discourse.
I hope so, right?
No, 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 it's not. I'm just going to tell you that there is a lot of work that has happened. There were 4,000 personality types. Then somebody else said there's 171. Somebody else said 3 types, and there was 5 factors. So the point is, there is a lot of research that has gone into personality,
Right.
and almost all of them generally point out to the fact that personality can be changed, can be developed. Let's move on to the next slot because that's one I would like to spend some time on.
Yeah.
This is Carl Jung's famous personality types. The first three bullets here, first three set of bullets is what Carl Jung put out. The last two are what Briggs and Myers added. And what they said is people generally exhibit these 8 different types of personalities.
Right.
And what happens is that each of us may exhibit different combinations of this in different stages of life, and indeed on a given day also we may exhibit different combinations of this. But in summary, if you look at the set of words on one side, on extrovert, sensing, thinking, judging, these are what I would simply put as the mind speaking. And if you look at the other side,
I would like to just ask, like, can we be only one or the other, or is it like, can we be many of these?
I'll
The
touch on that
combination.
point. I'll touch on that point at the it is a combination. That's what
Right.
Briggs Myers finally came up. And the
Fabulous.
point is, one side effectively talks about thinking from the mind, the other one thinks from the heart.
Right.
The point I'm trying to make is each of
Okay.
us can move from each of these types to the other during the course of our life and indeed
Right.
during the course of our day. Let's look at the next slide and I'll try to make it a little bit more clear. Oops. All right, yeah. Now, these are the 16 types of personalities that Briggs and Myers said is possible as a different combination of each of these. Again, I'm
Right.
not going to get into the details because these are easily, there's enough of material on the internet for us to read that. The
Do
point
you, do
is,
you think we should go and read about it so that we
I
get a
would
little bit?
strongly recommend you should. Myers Briggs or Briggs Myers, look for Carl Jung, spelled
Okay.
Jung,
Okay.
but it's pronounced Jung. Look for
Right.
these and you will really get. The point is, I may wake up in the morning as an INFP, the personality type at the bottom,
Yeah.
and during the day, I might actually move completely hyper and end up in the other corner, which is ESTJ, that is extrovert, sensing, thinking, judging. That's the time my mind is really working fully at full force. as I get towards the latter part of the evening, once again I get into a more better mood. The stress wears out. I'm heading home, so I think more from the heart. The wife's
Right,
waiting, and so on. And then, indeed, when I fall asleep, I will be none of this. I'll be just a log. So you see,
right.
even during a day, we can keep moving on. So, friends, the
Change.
point is there is a lot of work, there's a lot of theory that's behind what I'm saying. And if you really go through this, you will find that it is indeed possible for us to move from thinking from the heart to the thinking of the mind, for us
Right.
to move from being a real fat oaf to being a very healthy person, and vice versa, for us to being a very lazy lethargic person to somebody who's very very active and so on. So that's the thing, and I guess I will stop with this.
Yeah.
With this last slide, there are lots of contributory factors when it comes to the personality, which is of course our human and social affiliations, birth, inheritance, learning, and force. So all of these contribute towards it, and of course some of these we don't have control over, and some of these we have control over. I
Right.
will probably stop the presentation with this, and then maybe we'll get to the Q&A now.
Super, great, fabulous. Thank you, Farhad. I think that gave us a idea and an introduction as to what to expect and how you have built, how what helped you to reach here. So I think that is actually fabulous, fantastic. Thank you very much
Yeah.
for the presentation, Donna.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much, Farhad. I think I personally learned a lot about different factors that would lead to change, like change by circumstance, change by force, change by necessity, and you also had a phase where you have changed because of marriage, so which is amazing. And the one thing that I really noted was that when you were speaking about this change and how the personality types really vary, and why it's important for us to change. I remembered one thing that very famous singer Selena Gomez stated, that if you're broken, you don't have to stay broken. You can just go out there and change yourself. And something that I've seen in you, like as you were explaining about this story, was that there are many people who emphasizes the significance of radical, drastic changes, but you are someone who celebrates these little, minute changes in life. What is
The- Indeed, change cannot really be radical. I have never believed in revolutions. I believe in evolution. Things should really move step by step, because that's when change can be sustainable.
Yeah,
The moment we think that no, that's it, I'm going to change, I'm going to turn a new leaf today, it's not going to happen. You got to make sure whatever steps we take remain sustainable and otherwise the change that we see, we may just see for like maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then we are again back to normal. Like, say for instance, I know lots of people, and I'm somebody who has successfully done it, try to quit smoking, and then they say no, that's it, we're going to go cold turkey. Cold turkey is good, but you got to prepare yourself to get to the cold turkey moment. You
yeah,
got to prepare yourself. That's what I did. I prepared myself. And then eventually, at the day I realized, okay, now I'm ready to make that change, make that stop. That's the day I went cold turkey. But it didn't mean one fine day I woke up, I threw my everything away. So no, I'm not going to smoke from tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. So change has to be sustainable, and in order to do that, I would always recommend a step by step, focused approach to change.
great. So if the question is whether to have one big jump or many tiny steps, you would say,
Many tiny steps, and eventually if you are comfortable enough after you've taken those many tiny steps and you just need that one small jump, just go ahead and do it after that. But that's only after you're confident that you have taken the tiny steps necessary.
exactly. I think this is what doesn't get said usually. People always answer this question as either this or that. They always say either it is tiny steps or one big jump. But I appreciate you for saying that. Let's take those tiny steps, and then ultimately, if there is one big jump that is required, let's do that, because that is how I think most of us have done it. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing it, Farhad.
yeah.
Next question from me is, Farhad, now people say make small changes. We make small changes. Most of us at least try. But what happens is, because the results come very slow in small changes, we get defeated and demotivated while trying to do that. So, how to keep the commitment? What made you keep the commitment?
See, it's normal for us to face situations where objectives will not be met or things will keep getting delayed. A good case in point was the fact that I had always wanted to get an academic qualification. I never worked towards an academic qualification. I've always had went through the professional route. And one thing that was always lacking was the lack of an academic qualification. I kept putting that off on the understanding, on the thinking that okay, it's beyond me, I cannot do it, I can't do it. But eventually I got to a stage where I decided, okay, let me sit down and now take that little that small leap.
Yeah,
I got myself prepared, I got myself focused into being able to sit down, take notes, read books, understand, get into that academic line of thinking. And then eventually one fine day I decided, listen, okay, now's a good time for me to take that leap. And I looked around. Of course, I wasn't ready to chuck my job and then go and spend 2 years somewhere. I can't afford to do that. So I had to look for a course which enabled me to continue to work, whilst at the same time also helped me achieve what I wanted. That's where the key decision making takes place. Now, for instance, if I had decided, okay, now I'm going to go academic, I'm going to get my master's, I'm going to get my PhD, let me chuck my job and go. The chances are that maybe the first 2 to 3 months I will be really at it. But when the pinch is felt,
yeah,
when the cash inflow, that little monthly injection of cash coming into our accounts is missing,
yeah,
that's when I'll decide, oh, was it worth it? Self doubt creeps in, and
yeah,
so on. You don't want to get into that kind of a situation.
sure.
So, when you are trying to make a change, look through the entire process, take a bit of time thinking through the process, breaking it down into its various components, figure out which of those are not negotiable, so therefore we cannot compromise on, figure out the components that are negotiable and therefore it can possibly be compromised on or changed, and then work on making sure the not negotiables are still there and move on with that plan of change.
Yeah.
In my case, again, getting back to my academic thing, I found a course which was completely online, and this is, by the way, long before Corona hit us. It was completely online. All the classes were online. So my classes were something like what we see here, this podcast. The teacher is on there, all the students are here. In fact,
Right.
one of the ladies, and I always was looking forward to seeing her, she used to turn up in her night dress and so on. And but we still had very successful and very beneficial, very useful classes, just like we would in a physical setup. People were discussing, people were taking notes, asking questions, arguing, discussing with each other. It also, in a way, made us ready for this new normal where we can work on this platform. So you see, that was just a benefit that I kind of learned because of Corona. But in a way, I found a course where I could still get the entire academic experience whilst at the same time not leaving my job, leaving the place where I was, and I continue. So the point is, figure out what you absolutely must have, figure out the ones things that can be compromised on, look for possibilities and options where that change can be done whilst keeping the not negotiables, and just get on and go ahead. I spent a good 2.5 years at my getting my master's degree, and I'm happy to say that I successfully managed to get it. And I also dare say that I probably had the same or a better experience than had I chucked my job and gone and got into a physical classroom. Probably that personal interaction was missing, but hey, I now have friends all over the world. My best buddy from my MBA class is a gentleman in Ecuador named Caesar.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I
Anyway,
think that's beautiful. Yeah, very nice. Very, very nice. Donna?
Thank you very much, Faraz. So one question that I have right now is that um, there are two types of people who considers in terms of success. Like for instance, if it's me, I always have very big, daring, audacious goals. But there's also a friend of mine who has no such big goals. She just takes life as it comes, like very lightly. What do you really believe in? Do you believe in like having really big audacious goals, or do you believe in taking life very lightly, take it as it comes? What is your approach?
I it actually depends on what you wish to achieve. I personally would go completely crazy and audacious on one hand, and on the other hand, for certain issues, I may take a very measured and very step by step, very measured approach. So it depends on what you wish to do really. Now, at the time, I went ahead and got started doing my MBA. It was not very popular that people would do a complete 2.5, 2 years MBA program completely online. But I went ahead and did it, and lots of my friends said, "Is it recognized? Are you getting the same degree? Are you sure you're not wasting your money? After 2.5 years, you will probably realize it was all a waste." But I just went ahead and did it. Just take the plunge. But on the other hand, when it came to a decision like buying a house, I had to take a very conscious and a very structured decision. I just couldn't go and buy a house anywhere. Like, say, for instance, I couldn't just say, "Oh, that house is nice, I'll buy it." I can't. A house costs literally a lifetime of earning, so I can't do that. I needed to take a proper decision. Hey, but getting my wife, that probably would have been a quicker decision than buying a house, I guess. But
I hope he's not around.
she is. But the thing is, the point is, that's a decision because you're going to live there. You need to look at the neighborhood. You need to see if everybody's okay, if there's instances of petty theft in the area. Is my car going to be safe if I park it out? So it depends on what you really wish to do, Donna. It's okay to go audacious on some, crazy on some decisions, but on some it's important that you take your time and make a proper measured decision. um, Again, we are human beings. We have that impulse buying thing in us. All of us do have it. I mean, at times, even on things that we really need to be very careful, we might just be very impulsive and go ahead and do it. But hey, if you do end up doing something like that, I guess you can just put it down to experience and say, I think I learned from that. Back to you.
Fabulous.
Thank you,
Udula says hi for us. He
fabulous.
says, good to see you in action.
Hey, Udula, good to see you too. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Udula, for joining. And also, this is his number. Says hi, Prasad. I say hi back. Thank you very much for being here too. Farhas, out of all of this, now you have shared a few stories. I think you have shared about how you went from very humble beginnings to the absolute top at work, and how you have made conscious decisions in life, in terms of health, in terms of making decisions as to getting married, making a family, having like having to decide on what is important in life, and so on and so forth. For us, most of the time what happens is we are so busy making, running after, like, let's say, money, fame, like what our positions are, whether we when we were assistant accountants, we wanted to be accountants. When we were accountants, we wanted to be the head of department. When we became head of department, we wanted to be chief financial officer, director, so on and so forth. Nothing was enough. But at times I have felt people who have gone up to the very top very unhappy. So I think one of those questions that immediately pops up is how to set meaningful goals. How would you answer that, Parag?
It's quite simple, Yoga. And this is a very important question and something which is quite topical even as far as I'm concerned. I have sometimes made tough decisions
Right.
uh, in my career. As I moved up, at times I have made some tough decisions as well. And sometimes the decisions, people may think when they look at me from outside, "Are you crazy? Why are you making this decision?" No, certain decisions have to be made because we should always remember it's not the end of everything that we have the topmost title in an organization. It's not the end of everything that we have the topmost job in the organization or in the industry. It's not. There is a lot more to life than just achieving so-called corporate organizational success. There's a lot more to life. Now, there will be a time when, regardless of whatever positions we hold, that happiness factor, that mental satisfaction is not going to be there. And if we get into such a situation, it doesn't really matter how much we earn, it doesn't matter how big and fat our title is, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter how much of unlimited tea and coffee we can drink in our plush offices. End of the day, when we get home, if we cannot smile at our family, if we cannot smile at our partners, or for those who have kids, at your kids, play with the kids, then what's the use of all of that?
yeah,
So, yes, it's important, don't get me wrong. You need to build a career, you need to build an experience, you need to build your little resume. But at the end of the day, that isn't the end of everything, because there is a lot more to the world than just the four walls of the office. There is a lot more. There are people out there who would give anything for a quick 10 minutes chat. There are kids out there who would love to have mentors. They have never had that opportunity. There are perhaps students out there who have got 8 distinctions, 4 A's in their A levels, but they have absolutely no way of getting out and continuing and achieving getting to the bottom of their aspirations. If we spend all of our time and effort in just looking at our business cards, looking at our titles, enjoying the cushy, comfortable offices, when are we going to get the time to make a difference in the lives of people who matter? And I'm not saying this just out of emotion. I'm telling you this because somebody one day did the same thing to me. When I was a nobody, I had someone who came and gave me that little boost. Not just one, I had actually about 3 or 4 people who, at very crucial moments in my life, during my school career as well as my academic career as well as my professional career, at key moments, certain people stepped in and gave me that boost. And I have always found those people who stepped in weren't the ones who were chasing the titles or who were chasing those positions. These were people who had good qualities, who had these are people you'll be proud to call a mentor. Yoga, if we are not if we aren't people who others are proud to call mentors, what's the use of us having those millions and billions? Because remember, maximum 80 or 100 years is all that we will live on this earth, and then after that, what do we leave behind and go?
very
You
true.
get it?
I really like the fact that you're making it's not actually what we achieve, but then how we help others, what we help others achieve, and what is the impact we make in those other people's lives that really matter. I think this should also definitely be part of our goal setting so that we can set goals that are meaningful. Amazing. But before we let Donna ask the other question, I'm going to share with you something very interesting on screen. I'm sure this is the first time that you're going to see it in your life. So I'm going to show it. This is this. I think this is you're going to celebrate this for life, I guess. So here we go. Somebody very important, even after you saying something bad about her.
I'm always proud of you also, Niro.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We just see the husband and wife compliment each other on a podcast. I think in the podcast history, this is the first time that has happened. So we are happy that our podcast was facilitating it. Fabulous. Thank you very much. We
Well,
love you both.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I might have the arguments and the fights after the podcast, but hey, that's for just from us to know and for you guys to find out.
Fine. Figure out. Figure out. Excellent. Fabulous. That was beautiful. Donna, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rosa, for joining us. And it's so great to see always like how this fabulous couple always complements each other. It's not, I mean, it's something that we know that we've seen always, and I'm sure like we can talk about it towards the end of the podcast how your close circle really matters. But before that, I think we also have a question from Hisham where he wants to know like how exactly do you define success. We'll go for that, and then we will go for my next question. How do you define success, Farhad?
I guess a part of that, I guess a part of the response was already made in my previous response to yoga. And Hisham, thanks for that question, bro. I think success is when it's just not us who have made it in life, but because of our help, assistance, intervention, or simply a good word, a kind word, someone else also achieves success. And that is the true definition of success. Having a title, having a fat salary is just one measure of it. Don't get me wrong, it's important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not in any way saying all of you chuck your jobs tomorrow and stay at
Yeah.
home and start becoming, mentors to needy people. Don't get me wrong. It's important. But in as much as us succeeding, if we can pass that success on to others, then that is the true definition of success. I have this little maxim in life, and what I always feel is that at the end of the day, and as I said, 80 to 100 years maximum tops, we will be out of this world and we'll be just gone. But I have this little maxim in life, and let me, with your permission, just read it out to you, and I'll tell you. My aim in life is pretty simple. It is to actually leave behind useful knowledge, excuse me, that would benefit humanity as well as myself for eternity. Now, what do I mean by that? Yes, okay, if I leave knowledge, somebody else will benefit, but how is it going to benefit me? The way it's going to benefit me is if someone does some good using that knowledge which I have shared, that benefit, the merit of that is, and I believe in this is part of my belief, that merit of that is going to flow to me even long after I have passed away from this world. And that is what my expectation is. And for me, my measure of success is if I can leave something useful behind in the world, and human beings, animals, birds, the fish, the cat benefit out of it, I have achieved success not just in this world but even beyond once I have passed on. So I guess I've
Fabulous.
answered something
Fabulous.
to you, Hisham. Thanks for the question.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Farhaz. I think something that you shared in the previous answer that really touched my heart. That is, somebody has helped you out when you were a nobody for you to position. And I think it's the same case with me. It's the same case with yoga, and we are always looking forward to pay it forward to be of some service so that we can leave a mark behind and leave a good legacy in the world right before we leave. So I think it shouldn't be really where you're focused on only on your selfish goals of career advancements or the finances or asset goals. It's not just about you, but it's also about people around you and then leaving a mark. And so with that, I was also like quite inquisitive to know, uh, when you were talking about the weight loss, and of course, I'm a big foodie and I'm someone who is struggling for weight loss. And I want to know, it's something which is so hard to do. You get a lot of distractions, and you need quite a bit of perseverance for you to achieve something like to achieve your weight goals and to have that health goals in mark. So
I think what she has been asking is, how do you continue? How do you pursue a goal like that?
Well, yes, I think I got the gist of the question, but it would be great if she was also here because she's the one who wants. It's pretty simple. I have this old former colleague of mine, and I'm still in touch with him. And
Right.
he's one person who I consider a mentor from in my life as well. Uh, he said, and his name is Kaiser Zaman. I'll name him also over here. And this
Right.
gentleman is about 10 years older than me. But if you look at him, he looks 10 years younger than me.
Right.
He's a fitness freak. He runs every day, and I asked him, and if you look at his frame, he's quite, well built, structured, and so on. And when I asked him, Kaiser, why do you? He eats very little. He told me, for us, the human body doesn't need a lot of food to survive. That's the reality. That's how we have been made. That's how we have. That's how this structure works. We just out of a concept called greed, we gobble a lot more food than we actually should. What Kaiser told me really resonated. He said our nutrition requirements are fairly limited. All you really need is to control that hunger and make sure that you keep yourself properly nourished with the right kind of food. That's it. We don't need to overeat. And he was one person I have seen. He's an epitome of eating discipline, and I learned a lot about eating discipline from him. Yesterday I was at a meeting, and me and wife, we had a lot of things to do, and then we had a bit of a late lunch. So when I ended up at the meeting, it was around 4 o'clock. They had sandwiches and cutlets and coffee and all of that stuff, and it was like a I and they were passing the plate around. And when it came to me, I said, "No, thank you. I just had lunch."
Wow.
And they were surprised. They said, "You seem like a guy who would enjoy food. You're fat. Why don't you eat a bit?" I said, "No, I just had lunch. And I can't eat this because I don't really need this right now."
Right.
See, my dear friends, what we really need to understand is how much of nutrition do we really need. And if once we get that, once we understand, then it's quite easy for us to control. And it all boils down to control. You just need to know how much. And yes, Ravi Udawala says, should we eat to live or live to eat? That's exactly the question. Thanks,
That is
Ravi.
Ravi being Ravi, I guess.
Yeah, but it's true. It's absolutely, he
True.
hit the nail on the head. We eat to live, and that's all you really need. You don't need a lot of food to live. And if we can know when to draw the line, we should. And one other trick that I learned from Kaiser is eat slowly, because apparently our stomach and the brain don't talk to each other as fast as we do. They are not in good speaking terms.
They
They
can't
have
have a podcast together, I'm sure.
they can't have a podcast, and there are lots of intermediaries, so they take about 20 minutes to communicate with each other.
Oh,
So if you eat fast, before the stomach can tell the brain, "Hey, I'm full," we have already filled our stomach beyond capacity. But if we
right,
eat slowly, then what
right.
happens is that message, by the time the message reaches, our stomach is just the right amount of full, if you get the drift. So
I
eating
understand.
slowly was another trick that I learned. So Donna, eat slowly, eat the right amount of food, eat the right quantity of food, and you should be okay. Having said that, I need to figure out a way to get back down to about 80
For a mind, I'm
kilos.
sure.
I'll eventually do. Of course, exercising is important, my dear friends. So don't ever forget the importance of exercise. Back to you.
Fabulous. Now
Yeah.
we have about 12 minutes to end the stream. So what we will do is we will ask quick questions and we will go for maximum of a very fast round robin session kind of a question and answer. Farhas, one of the problems that I have been facing, I think whatever the advice on health, I am sure it's you and I who should be having the discussion. So let us have the discussion rather than Donna fake asking questions about being fat. Um, what I would say is I set audacious goals on January 1st. By January 15th, I have gone to two different parties. I have gained back all the weight that I lost in the gym. I have given up on all the dreams and goals. By 15th, I'm back to my older ways. Problem is, whenever there is a challenge, we give up a little bit in life, not only in weight, right? Whenever we face a challenge, we face a roadblock, we give up a little bit and go back. You need a lot of mental strength to fight back again. How do you find that mental strength for us?
Sure, Loka. It's normal. I mean, if we did not face the challenge and then feel that little bit of dejection, we wouldn't be human. We are human beings with a reason. We have that emotions going on. We say, "Well, why should I trouble myself?" And it's okay to feel that way. But the key is not to get stuck in that little cocoon for too long. Because if we do, that's when we find ourselves getting into a little cocoon, into that comfort zone. Our personality, remember, we're talking about personality, it gets fixated into that place, and we do not grow out of that. We should remember it's okay to feel dejected, it's okay to feel down, it's okay to feel challenged, but stay in there just as long as it gives you that bit of comfort, but move out of that and then refocus on what needs to be done.
Great.
And so I guess that's a short answer to this, given that there's not too much time. So
Fabulous.
be there, spend just enough time to get you that level of comfort, and whatever you cry or whatever you want to do over there. But get out of that as soon as you can. Again, refocus on what needs to be done. List it out, write it out, speak to friends, speak to mentors, call a friend, call your dad, whatever. Get out of that as fast as you can, and then move on. If you are not able to get motivation from within, there's enough of people outside who would give you that motivation. So reach out,
Fabulous.
and I'm sure.
Amazing. For us, so can I say, I think I understood it as whenever you face a challenge, don't take it as a defeat, but as a loss. No loss is a defeat. Don't be defeated by take it as a loss, deal with it, but then go back again, try again. Yeah,
Absolutely. I
great,
think you hit the
great,
nail on the head. Yep.
fantastic. Thank you, Parvas.
So I have a question, Farhaz. The question is how important is spirituality in terms of your success? What is your take on spirituality?
See, Rona, I always have been nominally spiritual when I was young. And I guess that's true with most of us. When we are young, we don't really understand the seriousness of it. We are not as mature as we should be. So we are all nominally spiritual. Generally, we are very spiritual in front of our parents or our religious leaders. It's as if like we are the ones who brought that religion down to earth and all that. But the moment they move away, we get on with life. However, as we grow older, I personally became a lot more spiritual, especially during my mid 30s, round about the time I was going through this weight change problem. I also went through a bit of an episode of minor depression and what have you. And that time, in addition to seeking medical assistance and the proper professional assistance from the experts, I also got a lot of solace going and getting spiritual guidance, getting and personally becoming a lot more spiritual. I guess that helped balance out my life in terms of getting a temporal solution as well as the spiritual solution, and that probably helped me focus on the way forward. So my take on spirituality is that it is, and this is a personal thing, I know there may be people who would disagree, but it's quite important that we also look at spirituality as important as we would a scientific or a temporal issue, because in both of these is where we will be able to find the respective strengths necessary to go forward and so on. um, I know there have been certain instances, and sadly, I also know a few people personally who went through depressive episodes and what have you, and because they didn't probably get proper medical, professional, as well as spiritual guidance, sadly, they actually ended up, doing the unthinkable, and that was very sad. And it has happened as well, and also there are lots of people, very famous people, actors and so on, who have also gone to the extent of doing the unthinkable. I personally think we need to get both sides, get we need to get speak to experts from both sides and make sure we harness the strengths of both of these and go forward. Personally, I did take a lot of spiritual guidance and help in addition to getting medical help, and that helped a lot.
Right.
Fabulous, fabulous, Farhas. I think that was beautiful. That was beautiful. Very well said. I think spiritual guidance, some sense of spirituality is important. Farhas, I would like to ask, what is the importance of being in the middle path in spirituality? Because at times, what we know is people get into spirituality, either they don't believe in anything or they believe it a lot. Nothing else matters more than spirituality, or nothing, the spirituality doesn't matter at all. So how do we find this middle path, and why is it important?
Once again, what I'm about to say now may seem very philosophical, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you take our blood pressure, you, only when you are in that middle range is it normal. If you have high blood pressure, it's a problem. If you have low blood pressure, it's a problem. You collapse. If you take the sugar
Yeah.
numbers, again, if you have too much of sugar, it's a problem. If you have too little sugar, it's a problem. If you look at the Earth, the place where we are, it's supposed to be that little Goldilocks zone which enables life. A few hundred kilometers this way or that way, we would either freeze to death or burn to death.
Sure.
The point in all of this is our entire life and everything around us is based on moving in this middle path.
Right.
Don't get into either extreme. So same thing goes with things like spirituality. Even same thing goes with things like academia. If you get too much into academics, you're just going to end up as a bookworm and a nerd and not being practical. So make sure we get the best of both, but stick to that middle path, because therein is what this entire world and our entire life is all about. Sticking to the middle path will ensure that, as Yoga pointed out, we don't go to one extreme where we don't believe in anything, or we go to the other extreme and we say, okay, my path is the only one and everybody else's is not that. That's not it. Come on, everybody else has a right to what they believe in, and there is good in every belief system that is there in the world. So let everybody believe in whatever it is, stick to that middle path, and you can have a lot of friends.
Great, fabulous. I think this is something that we ought to continue to say to people, because what happens is people tell us what they do is correct, what they believe is correct, and then we get stuck in that unfortunate perception, right? For us, we have 3 minutes. We will take 1 minute each. One of these questions that we have received is from Hisham again, and what he is saying is. Uh, Looking back at your corporate life, what was the best advice you had got that you disagree now?
I have so many great advices that I got in my corporate life which I disagree now, and one of them actually was from a gentleman who, by the way, I still consider a mentor. Back when I was in my early 30s, I wanted to do an MBA at that time. And he said, hey, you got SEMA, you have got chartered accounting. Why do you really need to waste your time? Because all of these are as valuable as an MBA. And in and of itself, that's a very valid thing he said. Because in the UK, when you look at the UK qualifications chart, the CIMA and the chartered are way up there, very similar to an MBA. But later on, I realized not everybody is my boss. There are people who still want the MBA. So
Yeah.
whilst he gave a great advice and I didn't waste time, I eventually had to correct that and get an MBA done even at a ripe old age of 45. Oh shoot, now my age is becoming a lot more apparent. At the ripe old age of 45, and so there you go. That's one advice which was good at that time, but I disagreed, and then I actually went ahead and took steps to fix it. So one example, Hisham.
Great, great. Thank you very much. Um, I think
I
Donna has a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one question. I think we have a question that we have got from one participant also, like audience member. But I will first go for my question. That is, um, how important is your close circle for you to achieve your goals? Because we saw that you have such a fabulous supportive wife right throughout for everything you do, and definitely she matters. And apart from her, I'm sure like there are so many people who are within your close circle. You said you have mentors, and there can be maybe mastermind groups too. How important is it for us in terms of a person's success?
We are a part of society. If we were an individual, I would probably have been born in Pluto or somewhere, really far away. When we are born, we are part of society, and we need to remember that. We should never forget that. It's only in the society, being part of the society, the success would that we could even dream of can only be conjured up and achieved only if we are in part of that society. As you rightly pointed out, my wife is a very big strength for me in almost everything I do. Almost, the key word is almost, but she is a great strength. At the same time, the best mentor, the biggest, the most important mentor I had in life, obviously, was my father. He went through a lot. My grandfather, he was a serviceman during the British era, and then when after independence, he was part of the Sri Lanka, the Ceylon army at that time. He was a great mentor for me. I still look up to the man because he was literally very tall. I had to look up to him, and I still can see him towering above me. Same way, I had lots of teachers. There was one particular teacher I remember. I had fared very badly in a maths exam once. He was a maths teacher. He called me and said, "Listen, Faraz, I know you can do better. So because of that faith, I'm going to give you 2 extra marks and pass you because otherwise you'll fail." And he gave me those 2 extra marks out of his pocket. I never disappointed the man thereafter. The very next exam, I got 96, and he called me and said, "This is what you can do, and this is the faith I had in you." So you need all these people in life, and it's people like this who have made you and us what we are. Without them, we would. If anybody says, "I'm a self-made man," there's a lot more to it than being a self-made man. So I guess that answers the
I
question.
agree. I
Absolutely.
agree. Beautifully said.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
have this
Karthik, you
question.
can go.
Yeah, we have this question from Mohammed Amin, a good friend from Saudi Arabia. Once you made a decision, how do you steadfast stand by the decision till you succeed? I think we covered this in greater detail in your previous answer because we asked the same question. So I believe that is answered. So thank you very much, Amin, for reaching out to us. Um, so thank you for being with us here also. Uh, so for us, thank you very much. I think the time we have spent, we didn't feel like it has been an hour. You share a lot of valuable insights to life from your taking time from your valuable, very busy schedule, and then sharing all these valuable ideas and experiences. I'm ever grateful. We are very grateful. I'm sure everybody who was with us today was very grateful too. Donna, would you like to
Of course.
conclude?
Of course. Thank you very much, Farhas, for such an inspirational story. And I'm ready to take over the world after listening to you. There's so much to take in. I'm sure if even if we have like a 5 hour conversation, we will still not get fed up with your humor, with your energy, and your passion to share things with all of us. And I'm sure the viewers really took many things from your life, many insights from your life. And so I think since we are like 2 minutes past 9 o'clock, we are about to conclude. Thank you very much for joining with us. To all the viewers, our guest today, Farhas. We are going to meet next Wednesday at the same time, 8 o'clock, coming live with yet another fabulous guest. So till then, take care. See you and have a good night.
Thank you very much, everybody.